So I think that basically personnel selection is shaking on its foundations, right? Lots of the assessments that we have, that we do, suddenly we're not quite sure if they're still as effective. And for lots of the assessments that we know are really not that effective, this is also a threat. But that may be good in a way. So what I mean is, let's say we have work sample tests, which are always a great way to sort of assess somebody's ability to do the job. Yeah, if that is a writing test for a job as an editor or something, that's clearly now a little bit under threat. But on the other hand, maybe people should use ChatGPT anyway in that position.
Yes.
So it's all up in the air, right? So organizations are adjusting, are incorporating these large language models into their workflow, are working out how can we use them, what can we put in them, will the Big Brother be watching, will they be taking our content? So there are lots of things going on there. But in a way that's probably one of the more relevant questions. Should we also be trying to assess or allow people to use these things when it comes to personnel selection? I do see a lot of assessments that will change based on just its sheer, like the fact that it exists. Things like cover letters, CVs, and work sample tests are easy targets, but also the other stuff that probably be able to talk more about based on the research he is doing, that even psychometric tests are under threat. But what I also see, there's also a good side. I think that having a large language model as an assistant might empower more people to do proper personnel selection. So if you're in a small to medium business, you're an owner, it's really difficult to know how to do personnel selection properly.
Yes.
And if you have an assistant that has all that knowledge and is able to guide you to conduct a simple job analysis and then select instruments that will test the KSAOs that you require, and that can all be done sort of for you, set up for you. You only need to execute it. I think that also could boost professionalism in personnel selection in general.
Yeah, that's a really good insight. I just envision somebody in a contrarian locked in a room writing multiple choice items on a typewriter, because they're going to be the same technology, typewriter, a good analogy there, because it just will be superfluous based on technology. And I expect, especially with multimodal, that it's just going to become, there's two directions for me. One is it's just going to be completely transparent, and digital exhaust, or just your interactions in the hiring process even, will be processed somehow to give some assessment. And then it will be, simulations that are really easy to create and score and all that. I mean, that's just how it's going to happen. How long that takes, I don't know. I mean, I have several clients right now. We're working on multiple choice test stuff. I mean, it's still there. It's not going to disappear that quickly. Maybe the parallel. I love drawing analogies. Electric, and soon to be, I think, hydrogen powered vehicles versus internal combustion engines, right? We have both. We're moving toward probably a cessation of one, but there's plenty of oil in the ground, and there's plenty of people who can't afford it. So I don't know if the analogy is exactly perfect. So you all have some great perspectives. I love the grounding in academics and assessment stuff, but also the broader look, because look, for me, CVs are more of a cover letter. I mean, I haven't applied for a job in a long time, but does anybody even look at those? Really, is that going to sway anybody's opinion? So that seems like an appendix almost now. Resumes too. So let's talk about that. Let's talk, because that's the tip of the spear as well in the hiring process, right? So if we think about it as a funnel and a workflow, there's all kind of issues with AI determining or being used to help you move people from outside the funnel inside the funnel. And we don't need to talk about those today. But let's assume someone is applying, right? They already know about the job and they're applying. It's the tip of the spear. This is where generative AI is probably going to come into play first. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about that. And Patrick, it seems like that's something, I don't know if you all are both working on it, I think, but let's just open up with that conversation. What are you looking at? What are you finding in this area that I think is going to be really interesting to know.
Yeah, I mean, the first point I'll make is there's a lot of claims and a lot of words and a lot of things being said, but not a lot of hard evidence out there yet, at least not that I've been able to find. And so one of the hypotheses that you might sort of start with is this hypothesis that large language model would be able to assist people who with their writing, right? So they could take somebody's writing, which is pretty average, and make it sound more impressive, more professional. You can always give a large language model a persona using a prompt, and so you can make your own writing sound like it's been written by Christopher Hitchens or Albert Einstein or Donald Trump, whoever your favorite celebrity is, and so one hypothesis might be that if people are applying, if organizations are using text-based information such as cover letters to act as the early part of the filtering process, then applicants who use a large language model to produce some of this content, when their writing is not terribly good normally, they might have a better chance of getting through that filter than otherwise. In the study that Djurre and I are working on at the moment, and I'll get him to talk a bit more about it because he's closer to the data, but our goal was to test that hypothesis. So it's a two-phase study, and in the first phase, what we're doing is we're asking participants to share a cover letter that they have written previously, so a handcrafted one, without the assistance of a large language model. Then we're asking them to prepare a new cover letter for a fairly generic management level job. So like you can imagine, I can't remember what it was, but Djurre can give you the details because he's very familiar with the Qualtrics survey we're using. So we're asking these participants to produce a cover letter for that job, and we've encouraged them to use the previous cover letter they've shared with us already if it would save them some time, because we figure most people, when they don't just write a brand new cover letter, they dig up their previous one and edit it. And then in the final phase, we encourage them to use GPT 3.5, and we essentially say use this however you see fit. So, some people no doubt just copy and paste it and put in the placeholders. Others probably read it and then think carefully about, how good it sounds, how relevant it sounds to the job, and make edits. And Djurre will have a bit of data on the extent to which people have done that. We've got two groups of participants. One group are people whose primary language is English, and then we've deliberately targeted a second group who have indicated that English is not their primary language. So our hypothesis is that one hypothesis might be that the people whose primary language is not English might produce cover letters of high quality, at least as judged by a sample of recruiters. And that's the second phase of the study. We will get recruiters to evaluate these cover letters.